Hello, welcome back to class. In this class, we will be looking at our referencing. There's an example I love using to teach referencing, which is our multiplication table. Our multiplication table. Just as a form of a note, we have three types of referencing. We have three types of referencing. We have what we call relative referencing. Relative referencing. We have absolute referencing, and we have mixed referencing. What does relative means? Anytime we are performing our simple arithmetics on Excel, Excel is designed in a way to follow pattern. Excel is designed in a way to follow pattern. So, in referencing or in operating on Excel, if you have your 2 and then your 1 as your multiplication table implies, which values over here will keep being your 2 and then the value over here will keep being your 1. So if you notice here that I have the first 2 and I dragged down and Excel picked it as 2 or true. But now I have 1, I have 2. And if I should click on this, if I should drag down, you'll see something different. Can you see? Excel is picking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The question is why? If you are sound in mathematics, you must have done what we call AP and GP before. Your arithmetic progression and geometric progression. So here, Excel understand the fact that between your first value and your next value, there is an addition of 1. Just like you have been given things like 3 space 7 space 11 to fill. Your knowledge of math says that this is 1 plus 2, 3, 3 plus 2, 5, 5 plus 2, 7, 7 plus 2, 9, 9 plus 2, 11, and that solves the problem. And if you had consulted Excel itself, it will have given you also that same pattern. Can you see? That is because it understands how your mathematics actually works by default. So that's the reason why we can leverage on that to get to this, and then have this to be up to 12. And by the time we are doing our basic arithmetics, these are calculations without functions. In our arithmetics or in our calculations, we have calculations that has to do with that needs functions, and we have those that do not need functions. In our next class, we will be looking at our basic of our arithmetics. We will start with looking at arithmetics that does not need function, and then before we start looking at arithmetics that needs function, so that we can know how both operate. But then a typical example of arithmetic that does not need function is what we are using here for our multiplication table, which is 2 times 1. This will give you 2. So by default, if we should click on this and drag it down, Excel has the ability to populate this for us, referencing the first formula. And if you see the pattern, it will reference the formula across board by doing your value on your column B multiplied by the value on your column C. And this is basically what we call your relative referencing. Your relative referencing. Excel by default operates with relative referencing unless otherwise stated. Unless otherwise stated. For example, you have 2 year, you have 3 year, let's say you have 1 year, let's say you have another 3 year. These are not following a good order. They are just avasad. We are just arranging them. But if we are telling Excel that, and we are skipping a line, we skipped a line here, and we are telling Excel that this multiply by this multiply by this, and click on enter, it will give us 2. By the time you try to drag down, can you see it is giving us the values also? This is 9. So it is picking 1 year. It saw that you jumped a column here, and then you came to this line, and it is following that pattern. That is how Excel has been configured or designed, and this is what we call our relative referencing. However, if you need it to be stationary, that you don't want your Excel to be jumping up and down. For example, while growing up, we have a four-figure table like this. We have a multiplication table. I don't know why four-figure table is coming to my mind this morning. We have a multiplication table like this, and then this 2. There are some multiplication tables like this, and what is needed is that you are populating all these with this. So this is basically your 2 times 1, 2 times 2, 2 times 3, 2 times 4, 2 times 5. We have this. So we are using 1 to multiply everything inside here. We are using 2 to multiply everything inside here. We are using 3 to multiply everything inside here. We are using 4 to multiply everything here. We are using 5 for everything here. We are using 6 for everything over here, and on and on and on. So to do this, how can we go about it? We can't use the format or the style we were using before. We can even just make this maybe simpler and have this over here and have this over here. So, and say equals to your 1 multiply by your 1 over here. What we did earlier was that we dragged down. So dragging this down now, it will give us something complex. Imagine 1 times 6 is giving us 720. 1 times 7 is giving us 5040. So this is not wrong on its own. Why? Because Excel is following the format or the pattern we highlighted in the first place, which is our relative referencing. And we can see that is what it is doing. Again, picking, we picked a value here, we picked a value here. So when computing this next one, you pick a value here, pick a value here. When computing this one, you pick a value here, a value here. When computing this one, you pick a value here, a value here. And we can see a value here, a value here. Can see a value here, a value here. That is because Excel is still using our relative referencing. However, in a case like this, mixed referencing will work, but then preferably it is best to actually use your absolute referencing. So what is absolute referencing? Absolute referencing is when you decide to use a cell, a fixed cell, to multiply your variables. You are using a constant cell to multiply all your variables. So you have your constant k, which is a cell, and that cell is multiplying other variables. So, and when we are introducing our cell locking, we introduce what we call our dollar sign. Our dollar sign is what we use to lock the cell, that you are a constant. No matter what, don't change. No matter what, don't change. So in this our context here, we are using 1 to multiply everything here. So we can easily say equals to, note this one first, they are multiplied by this one. Which one is a constant? Your C22. Your C22 is your constant. So you want to lock your C22. Before your C, put your dollar sign, and then after your C, put your dollar sign. Don't forget that in our foundational class, we said your C22 talks about your column name and your row name. So we are locking, if you are putting the dollar sign just in front of your C, that means that you are only locking your column and you are not locking your row. You are only locking your column and you are not locking your row. If you are putting your dollar sign just in front of your C, if you are putting your dollar sign just in front of your 22, it means you are only locking your row and not your column. For example, like this. We are only locking our columns and not our row. And this is what we call our mixed referencing. Your rows we keep changing while your column is constant. It has been locked. So, but if you have this and this, your row is locked, is constant, but then your column can keep changing. This is also mixed referencing. However, if you want to lock a particular cell when your row and your column cannot change, then you need to apply dollar sign in front of your C and then dollar sign in front of your 22 so that you can lock both your row and your column. And in doing this, by the time we drag down again, we see that we will have this, we have our actual values. Same thing for this, equals to this, multiply by this. Then you lock this, and you lock this, and this. And then same thing, drag down or double click down, and then you have every of your values intact. So I am giving you every other part of this to do as a practice for yourself so that you can be assured that you understand what we are doing over here. Also, once you are done, you can do well to drop it on my DM so that I can help you check when you are done with it. That will be all on our referencing class. See you in the next one.